Hello, and welcome to Regrets I've Had a Few. I'm Paul Hunter, Artistic Director of Told by an Idiot, and this is a podcast where I talk to friends and colleagues delving into what made them the person they are today.
Hello, and welcome. My guest this month is an actor equally at home on stage and screen, from new writing to devising, from the classics to critically acclaimed TV work. She also happens to be from my hometown. Welcome, fellow Brummie, Amaka Okafor.
Yay! Brummies!
Exactly. And I just for our listeners' benefit, some people might not even know which parts of Birmingham we're from. But where were you from, and where were you born?
I was born in Dudley Road Hospital. And you know what? I was always told by my parents we're from Edgbaston, right? And I think that's because that's
Ah,
meant to be fancy. But now, because I go back all the time, it's Bearwood. I'm from Bearwood.
can I say, my parents were equally the same. I think we were kind of borderline Quinton, but very much Harborne in my parents' minds. Although,
I mean, they are next to each
yeah,
other.
they are. Although I have to say, since I was living there in the 1970s, Harborne's very swanky. It's got a Waitrose and everything.
It's so fancy.
Yeah. And Bearwood, also where I went to school. I think we've touched on this before, but my school, Lords of Boys School, was in Bearwood. And
Oh, you went to Lordswood?
I did, yeah. And we should move away from Birmingham. People might be tuning off in a
Oh,
minute.
yeah.
It's just a Brummie episode. Anyway, we'll come back to that. But I'm going to start, if I may, the way I start with all my guests, which in a way does obviously take us back to Birmingham. But I wondered if you could remember, if you do remember, your first kind of experience of seeing live performance and what that was, whether it was a family or school or...
Yeah. Well, I mean, my dad's a musician. He's a singer-songwriter.
Ah,
So I grew
wow.
up like, he has stories of me sleeping in his guitar case in the wings while he's on stage when I was a baby. So I definitely grew up watching him perform, and he is quite he goes somewhere else when he's performing. Like there are sort of chunks of the set where he will sometimes just put his guitar down and pick up a djembe, just like riff for ages. And there was something kind of scary and magical and dangerous about that, if you know what I mean. Like
Yeah, wow.
it wasn't like, oh, I knew what the set was going to be every time. Do you know what I mean?
And also, when you describe that, that sounds quite a, a very powerful thing from being very little
Yeah,
to experiencing that. And I immediately thought of another guest of ours, Audrey Brisson, who grew up in the circus because her father was part of Cirque du Soleil. And similarly, she talks like you of being around it from a tiny age and experiencing something that your parent does, which is transformative, so that must have been amazing. So did you go to were you there for lots of those gigs when you were little and stuff?
yeah. I think a lot of the time, sort of out of necessity, because there wasn't
Yeah.
anyone else. There was no one else to look after me while I was doing it. But it was also there was this definitely. My parents aren't together anymore, but there was definitely a stage when my mum was kind of his manager
Okay.
as well, and so like we would just. I remember being in lots of university halls and my dad gigging in universities, and I must have been so young and just stand. I was just always so proud, just
Yeah.
so proud of him.
And
Like,
also, it's interesting. We might touch on this a bit later. And I'm now going to go away and listen and look at your father's work. But I suppose also something that's in a sense rooted in obviously live performance and a certain degree of spontaneity, that it's not the same, it changes. And that's something that I is very close to my heart in terms of what we do as actors and stuff and how we tap into that. So I might come back to that. So in a way you have show business in your blood then.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I never linked it as much as an adult. I'm like, oh yeah, of course, it's from that. But I remember the moment when I knew I wanted to be an actor.
Oh,
And I was quite young, and it was when I don't know if you've seen the film Beverley Hills Cop, first one. I watched that when it came out, and I must have been like 7, maybe even younger. And I remember being like, because Eddie Murphy in that film is brilliant.
he is
He
without
is
a shadow of a doubt.
brilliant in that film. Like
Pitch perfect. Pitch perfect.
he's just also extremely free and
Mm.
a bit wild, and you can just tell like no one quite knows what he's gonna do. And at first I thought I wanted to be a police officer because that's what he is. He's a detective. I thought that's what I wanted to do. And then I was like, oh no, I want to do what he is doing. What he is doing. Like there's this one scene that always sticks in the back of my head where he's doing some deal. He's undercover and he's in some alley in the back of a truck. He's doing some deal to do with like cigarettes, I think. And suddenly the cops turn up and he's holding on to the edge of this lorry. And at some point, this lorry is about to tear down the alley and go around. And he just hangs on to these like chains. And he is like flying through the air on this lorry. And you're just like, he's doing that. A stunt guy's not doing that. And it also, you can tell he doesn't really know when the lorry's about to take off. And the lorry, this just was so exciting.
That's fantastic that something triggered that desire, as you say, to be a performer, which is, as you rightfully identify, an extraordinarily unpredictable, charismatic sort of thing happening within a form, in a way, of film that is often quite restricted in a sense. But he does. You're right. There's a sense that it's very unpredictable in a way. And what about as you were growing up, what about your own early tentative performance steps? At school? Were there school plays or anything like that?
Yeah, I went to lots of different schools actually. We traveled around a lot. But I think there was a time when I'm reassessing this now, but I was apparently difficult. I was difficult. That's what they tell me. And my godfather said to my mum, he was like, send her to youth theatre. And at the MAC, in Midlands Arts Centre, there was a youth theatre called Stage 2. And I joined Stage 2. And had no friends, didn't really make any friends, but loved being in it. And like the woman, Liz Light, who ran it, was so scary and had such high standards for us to do with attendance, timekeeping, learning your lines. Even as ensemble members, I was only ever an ensemble member, apart from in Bugsy Malone, like I had a couple of lines. But she really expected the best from everybody. And I just wanted to be there. I just turned up again and again and again. Not like I was embarrassed and shy because it was very cliquey and I wasn't in any of the cliques, but there was just something about it because it was a proper theatre as well. I don't know if you've
Yeah,
been in
I
that.
remember it very well.
Proper theatre.
I think it's interesting. Well, two things. My first question is, how old were you when you first went to MAC?
I want to say 8 or 9.
Amazing. Because it's interesting, those youth theatres. Obviously, I'm older than you, but in Birmingham, I remember MAC very vividly. But then I went to a youth theatre called the Triangle Youth Theatre in Aston.
Oh, I heard of that
And it
actually.
used to be, there used to be an arts centre there called the Triangle Arts Centre. And I don't know why I didn't go to Midlands Arts Centre and why I went there, but those youth theatres and the people that run around them, and as you say, that were kind of amazing in how they, got you into it and how they treated you on the whole as well. They're they took it seriously and they took you seriously, which,
Yeah.
wasn't always the case when you were growing up, was it? So, I don't know.
No, no. And I also did plays at
Okay.
school. I remember, like, in primary school, we did the Pirates of Penzance,
Wow.
which just feels like in our tiny little it was almost like a village primary school in near Harborne,
Yeah.
actually, Nursery Road.
Yeah.
Um, and it was tiny, and I can't believe we put on this, like, we did all the songs,
So you must have
like,
had a passionate Gilbert and Sullivan teacher in your primary school or something.
well, the good thing about the Pirates of Penzance is that there's room for everybody to get something to do.
Oh, okay, okay.
So, like, I feel like we all had a good crack at something. We all had our moment in the sun. And then I went to lots of different schools and always wanted to be in the plays and never had a lead part in anything. And then one school I went to where I had one teacher Mr. Turner, who just saw that I wanted to do this and he really fought for me, basically. I remember in my A levels, I didn't know this until I left, but in my A levels, all the way through school, I had small part, small part, small part, but part of the ensemble, which I loved. Then we did the Caucasian chalk circle in
Wow.
my upper sixth, and I got to play Grusha.
Fantastic.
And my teachers had this opinion that I wasn't very academic, and so behind my back, they had a meeting with Mr. Turner and said, you need to pull her out of the play because she's going to fail her A-levels. And he said to them, if you make me pull her out of the play, I will quit my job. And so they didn't. And he didn't tell me this until I'd done my A-levels. And I just was like, wow, he's the only teacher who took me seriously when I said I wanted to be an actor. Everybody else tried to persuade me to go into journalism or to do sports because I also loved sports. But he was, and he still comes to my plays. Like, I love Mr. Turner.
Oh, that's such a brilliant sort of story of not on a simple level, not just someone who's got your back, but someone who believes in you in a deeper way. And I think that's really, it's such a valuable thing, isn't it? That we need that somewhere. That's really
Yeah,
nice to be
somebody
an
who
actor.
really believes in you.
Yeah. Wow. Well,
And
he sounds amazing.
yeah, he's great.
And have you done any Brecht professionally?
No, I'm dying to.
Well, I love Brecht, and I'd never done any, and I got the chance a few years ago at the Unvic to be in Life of Galileo, and I just adored it. I think he's such an astonishing writer for
Yeah.
theatre, isn't it? And the act being that sounds. I wish I'd seen your parts of Prince Zatzma. So you're into the school plays. You're doing that. So did you do drama at A level?
No, another story. I'll try and keep them short. I feel like I'm going on and on.
No, this is brilliant. It's brilliant.
Well, I wanted to do A-level, but my school didn't offer it. So I said to Mr. Turner, I was like, "Look, I want to do drama," and he went, "Okay, go and tell the headmaster." So I went to headmaster. I should say I ended up at boarding school. I went to lots of different schools, like lots of different state schools because we moved around and we didn't have any money, but I took some exam, which meant the government paid for my fee. So I was in this like stuffy countryside, just full of white people, and it was very patriarchal. It was quite, that's why Mr. Turner was such a godsend actually, because he really saw me, he saw my spirit, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
so I went to the headmaster and I said, "Look, I really want to do theatre studies for A level, but you guys don't allow it." And he was like, "Okay, if you can get enough people from your year to say they want to do it, then I'll put it on." And he gave me a number of people that I had to get on this list. So I went around my entire year and was like, who's up for this? Who is willing to put their name on this thing to say they want to do theatre studies? I got more than double the number that he wanted. So I went back to him and I said, "Look, I've managed to get all these people who want to do it." And he basically said, "Oh, I didn't think you were going to manage that. I was never going to let you do this," basically. And
You're kidding me.
it was such a slap in the face, but also it was such a like moment of going, oh, grown-ups lie. They tell you that you can do a thing. And actually they don't always stand by their word. I was so disillusioned. I couldn't believe that he
That's
did that.
awful.
It's
That's
terrible.
a terrible thing to do.
So no, I didn't do theatre studies.
You've thrown two contrasting examples of teaching here, the brilliant Mr. Turner,
Yeah.
and then this person I
Mr.
don't want to be
Carson.
named.
I've
Well,
named
that's
him.
you've named it now, but the named and shamed it. So at what point you talk about vividly, the brilliantly, entertainingly, the point where you think I want to be an actor, where you see Eddie Murphy. At what point do you think I'm going to try and be an actor? I'm going to go
From then.
from then. As long as I was then, it was rock solid. Wow, that's
Yeah.
impressive. And
Well, I think it was sort of easier because I had a performer
yes,
father,
of
and
course.
when my parents separated, I lived with him.
Mhm.
So, we never had any money. I wasn't under any
Yeah. You saw a
delusions.
lifestyle of a
I
musician.
was like, this is gonna be tough.
Yeah. But it's an interesting thing where I don't know. I'm always fascinated. I've got friends whose parents are actors, and the difference. My mom was a dinner lady, and my dad was an electrician. There was no context for it. In fact, I had that conversation you kind of alluded to, where when I kept it a secret from my mates from school. I was playing sport was my big thing, and I certainly wasn't going to say I was going to act or whatever. And when I did, my mom and my sister said to me, "Why don't you go to university and do English? Then you'll have something to fall back on." And I remember going, "If I have something to fall back on, I will fall back on it."
Praise, something to
With
fall back on. That people said that to me all the time, even through
yeah, yeah.
university. even once I'd started doing it, I was just like, "Will you stop doing that, please?" Even when I went, it was always my sort of aim to be an actor, and I was quite private about that because I didn't want to hear this "what you're gonna fall back on" thing that I kept hearing from everybody. And I remember my first day at university, I did a degree in devising really, in Liverpool John Moores Uni. And I remember going around the circle at the beginning, our head of department, Lou, saying, "What do you wanna be?" And everyone would go, "Well, ideally I'd like to be an actor, but that's not realistic, so I'll do da 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 da." Everybody said that, and it got to me, and I was like, "I'm gonna be an actor." Like, we're 18. Let's try and do the thing we wanna do.
Exactly. And also, it's interesting that your use of language there as well. It's not like going, "Oh, I want to be." I'm going to be. There's
Well,
no want about it. I'm going to do this.
I just wonder what that's about. Like, even now I'm just having the thought, like, I've never been scared of, like, what would happen if I ran out of money, more because I grew up very, very poor because I had a performing parent, and we always managed. And so I know, like, I've been a cleaner in between jobs. I've looked after like, I've done those jobs in between to keep you alive. But also I always knew that if the shit really hit the fan, I'd just move home. I'd just move back in with my
Mm,
family,
yeah,
and I actually like them. So
yeah.
that wasn't such a bad
Uh,
thing.
no, that's really interesting what you say there, and also about like it's a very valid point you make about being 18. It should be full of that thing, not already going, "Well, I don't think that's very realistic." um, anyway, well, John Moores, it comes to where we met, of course.
Yes.
We chatted about this recently. That our company, obviously, the Idiots, amongst many companies, we were given great opportunities in Liverpool at the Unity Theatre under the brilliant Graham Phillips. And whenever we came every year in one of our shows, we'd always go to John Moores because it was next door, and we'd do workshops with the students, which we loved. And I think because the ethos it felt at John Moores also struck a chord with what we were kind of doing, in a sense, making work rather than doing a play off a shelf. We met a lot of brilliant students who were really. I think I mentioned Dharmesh Patel, an actor that's worked with us on several occasions, who I first encountered in that environment. Did it feel like quite an interesting time to be studying that type of theatre in that city, in terms of what was happening in theatre, or did you not really think about it?
Well, it was like nothing I'd ever experienced before. Oh God, I loved it so much. I loved it so much. I was completely petrified because devising is frightening.
Yeah, it is.
But I really loved it. I loved how at the beginning of each session, I would feel a bit sick because you just don't know. And then by the end of it, you've made something. You've always made something. And our theatre was black box, and they gave us complete freedom to do what we wanted in that space. So we built our sets, we painted it whatever we wanted it. We did the lights, we did the sounds, we found the costumes. We went into town. There was this place called Quiggins that was like this like old building in town where you could buy furniture really cheap and buy clothes really. We just go down Quiggins, get our set, come back up, make it. It was really something, and I was quite embarrassed for my first chunk of career of just not being able to say I went to RADA or any of these, like, drama schooly places. But actually learning how to do lights, learning how to do sound, doing direction, it gives you a way more holistic view of how to make work and respect for everybody's profession within this thing. That division between actor and technician
Yeah.
just shouldn't really be there. And
No, I think what you described really passionately and really brilliantly is an approach to theatre which is obviously the kind of theatre that I love being part of, which is in its essence, it should be the most collaborative art form, because it is about a group of people coming together to tell a story in front of another group of people in a live situation, and everybody's collaborating on that. And
yeah,
sometimes we know that film and TV and isn't always very collaborative. By its very nature, it's slightly more hierarchical. But theatre shouldn't be like that. Theatre, in its
mm,
very essence, should be an act of collaboration by every.
yeah,
People talk about that sometimes, but they don't. really commit to that as well. And I think your course clearly did. And I totally relate to what you're saying as well about that sense of fear, because I remember when I was at Middlesex, where I met Haley and John Wright was teaching us. Whenever I used to go to his classes, I had the perfect combination of fear and excitement. I was terrified to go, but I really wanted to go. And I think that's a really good thing for as a performer to have those
Mm.
together all the time.
I mean, that's what I loved about your workshops, actually. I think I did 2. I did one when you guys came with, is it Shoot Me Through the Heart?
Yes. Yep. Yep.
That's the show I saw, and I saw the other one where you had this big captain's hat on.
Yes. I can't wake up. A kind
Yeah,
of
those
strange
2
bit of
shows.
that memory. Yeah.
They were like doing the workshops. I always was like, oh my god, because we'd just seen your shows, and they were just so excellent. And you're like, God, can I even be in the same room making work with these people? But it was always just so fun. And then by the end of it, you like made a thing that I was like, I wish my tutors were in here to see this thing that I've just made with these guys. Like it's good feeling scared.
But
And
also, I suppose the great thing in a simple way, was that geographically how close you were to that
it was
theatre. You
literally
lived
next
next
door.
door, and I thought, what a great thing to. And then the programming that Graham was doing meant that you could see all this devised work. It was fundamentally that was the work that happened in the building. And
Yeah,
then,
it's
of
really
course, as you then obviously go on to a very illustrious career in performing, you then obviously encounter directors that I'm going to mention Sally Cookson now. I know Sally very well, but
yeah.
I've never worked with her. But I remember seeing you in Peter Pan and seeing various productions. And what I love about Sally's work, I love many things about Sally's work, but talking to lots of friends of mine who have worked directly with her, which I have, is the whole notion of devising and collaboration. And she still has that on her publicity, devised by the company. And I
Yeah.
really, I really respect that. I think that's a real acknowledgement of how the work is made, and that's not always acknowledged, I have to say. And I respect Sally for that.
Oh, she's wonderful. She really, I remember that one of the things I love about her is like she'll come in at the beginning of the day and she'll sit us all down together and she'll be like, right, I've got the material for this part of the show. I have the material for this part of the show. I don't know how to get from here to here. I don't know how to join them. What should we do?
Yeah.
And it makes everyone go, right, okay, let's roll up our sleeves. She really invites you in.
It's very
And when
enabling, very
it
enabling.
really is. It gives you power and
Yeah.
you claim it. Like we
Yeah.
owned that show, and
You
honestly, I
could see
loved
it.
it.
You could
That
see it.
yeah, like those people. I'm still very good friends with everybody in that show. We had such a fun time. Even there was one section where we were being space because it was the part where the kids are flying to Neverland and they fly through space, and it was me and Felix Hayes throwing a ball to each other, playing a game of catch essentially, and the ball was the planet. And it was one of those balls that lights up when it hits your hand. And like every day, it was like the funnest thing. Like he was challenging me with his throws. I was chucking myself. It was so fun. That show was
No,
wicked.
it's also, I think what's really interesting about what you say there about what Sally said to you about, how do we get from here to here? I don't know. I think sometimes, probably with my director's hat on now, but sometimes I feel directors feel the pressure to know everything and to be very much the position of I'm in control of this. Whereas I think a really strong position to take is I don't know. In
In
the sense
life, generally,
to
as well.
really enable and provoke the group to get on board and create what that is. And
Mm.
I agree. The reason why, and I love doing plays, of course I do, and talked about Brecht and all of those things. But the reason why I always come back with us, I suppose, the idiots, excuse me, is the sense of making it yourself. No one's done it before. You are doing it for it's yours. And I think you inhabit it as you say, as a performer slightly differently, just slightly differently to when you are given a role and you learn. Not saying you don't inhabit that, of course you do, but it's not the same as making it up. It's a different thing.
That's so true. Because when you're doing that, when you're performing something that you originated, you're sort of tapping into the spirit. Like there's a purity about it because you were the originator. And each time you come to do it again, you're sort of tapping into the integrity of the moment more because you're going, what was I trying to do? I was trying to do this. And it will look different. It can look different.
Yeah.
But the meaning is the truth. I know that sounds so like
No, no,
arty
no,
farty, but
no, it doesn't. It doesn't, and it's interesting when directors then give you the opportunity to tap into that in their process as well. You're so obviously, you've done some fantastic theatre. You also obviously done some great screen work. Do you ever feel we talked about your training. Do you ever feel there's been opportunities in your film work to apply some of that, or does it feel very separate to you in terms of the discipline of performance?
oh, that's really interesting. That is the thing that I'm trying to work on at the moment, actually. To me, screen work feels like it's very new to me still because I've done so much theatre and screens only happen like the last few years, really. And I'm really trying. I'm on a job at the moment, and the challenge I've given myself is to try and be more free, and to try and enjoy myself more. Then I came to see you guys in Rhinoceros, and was like, "Oh my god, told by an idiot. Hayley. Oh my god, Paul." Like, the way you kicked off the show, I loved it. Like, no one could do that like you. And so then afterwards, I went to just see if you guys were running workshops, and I was like, "Okay, this is my next focus, is to remember my history, basically, which is the work that you guys make, and to do those sorts of workshops and to find a way of fusing that spirit with also film, because the thing that's great about film that I love is you have to make a decision quite quickly and you have to nail it quite quickly,
Yeah.
which is similar to improvising.
Yes.
And so then I'm like, let me not get stuck in like having to hit the right mark and needing to know where the light is. Let me try and keep that improvising, to keep that
Yeah.
live thing
Yeah.
going that you're doing
In
when
a
you're
medium that in a medium that can be obviously quite technical. But I have friends as well who often friends who've been to Le Coq or whatever, and I they've often talked about the notion, and they're doing a lot of film work or whatever, but they often look back to that training on what they experienced, and in the same way you're saying, they're looking to take some of that through to, and of course it's applicable, of course it is. It's just finding that way of
finding a way to
how
do
you
it.
find that freedom within that
Yeah,
restriction, I
because I've
suppose.
been seeing Catherine Hunter pop up on screen more. Like, obviously, she's just forever been working, but like, I think I didn't properly clock like the first time I really saw her on stage as an adult was when she was doing Cleopatra and Unseen Cleopatra in the RSC. Um, and then after that, I saw her more on screen, and I was like, well, she's managing to do it. She's doing that weird
Mm.
thing she does,
Yeah.
and she's doing it on screen, and it works. It really works.
Yes. No, that's very true. Catherine's a good example because obviously she's astonishing performer on stage. I mean, undeniably. But I think you're right. As she's suddenly become more prominent in film and stuff, I think you see it, and you're right. It does work. It absolutely is. It still has that visceral quality that she has in the theatre for sure. Um, you mentioned Cleopatra and stuff. And this isn't a life changing question, but is there parts that you think, oh, I'd love to do that, or I'd love to have a go at that, or do you not think about parts very much? Just depends on the script, and Well, first of all, I'm asking the bigger sense of what makes you choose something if
Yeah.
you're going to do something.
Well, I mean, gosh, I would love to get some meaty, juicy stage stuff. I'd love to do Cleopatra. I've often thought about that. Um, I have really been, my journey has been very incremental. And so it's been like slightly bigger part, slightly bigger part, slightly bigger part. I've been in two massive productions of Hamlet, one with Benedict
For
Cumberbatch,
you,
yeah, and
yes.
one,
And I saw you with Andrew.
yeah, yeah. Both of those times not playing the part that I really would like to be playing. And so I think now I'm trying to hold off for just something meaty. I don't even have anything particular in mind, but like, it is interesting, like, whenever I auditioned as a young person, well, younger than I am now, my pieces, when you're at that stage where you're, like, bringing your own pieces in, and then it's
Of
that
course,
stage,
yeah, yeah.
my speeches were always men's speeches because I felt they had more freedom. There was just something in the writing where
Yeah.
it wasn't about being a man in the way that women's often seems to be about being a woman. Um, and sometimes I'm like, "Oh, I'd just love to be Macbeth," or like
Yeah, great. Yeah, why? Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know. I really, what I really want to do is like be like a cowgirl. Like I've always wanted to, because I grew up in watching science fiction movies, but also westerns. My dad loves westerns,
Yeah.
so I'd love to like get to be a cowgirl and learn how to ride and corral the cattle and all that stuff.
Not only can I see that, I do want to see that. So I wish you all the best with that
I'll let
ambition.
you know.
It's been so lovely chatting
You
to you. It
too.
really has. So thank you so much for saying hello again the other day,
Wow.
and it's been lovely and very very some of the stuff you said today has really struck a chord with me. So thank you. It's made me reflect on things. Now, I always finish each episode with the same thing. I ask 7 rapid fire
Oh
questions to
gosh.
which you just say the first answer that comes into your head, or indeed you don't have to answer. I think I might know the answer to this. I don't know my first one. Take That or Boyzone?
Oh, take that.
Has to be, doesn't
Yeah.
it? Um, uh, this is a question about something with or without something else. So I'm going to say this: chips with curry sauce or not curry sauce?
Not.
Not. Stage or screen?
I can't.
You don't have to answer. Bond villain or superhero?
Oh, superhero.
Actually good. Taj Mahal or the pyramids?
Taj Mahal. Oh, wow. Yeah, okay.
Lady Macbeth or Cleopatra?
Oh, no, Cleopatra.
Think very carefully before you answer this question. Aston Villa or Birmingham City?
Aston Villa.
Yes. I knew you were. I knew you were. Thank you so much. It's been really lovely catching up, and I hope we see
Thank
each other very soon.
you. So lovely.
All the
Take
best. Take care. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.
Dear listeners, if you've enjoyed this idiot podcast, please spread the word